Grr, scary Boggy Creek monster. Grr, welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate stopping on by, seeing as how weeks ago I reviewed the Charles B. Pierce classic, The Legend of Boggy Creek, a movie I got into or first saw when I was in my mid-20s or something. I said in that video that it only made sense that I stop on by and review the return to Boggy Creek and sometime later do Boggy Creek 2, The Legend Continues, or whatever it's called. Turns out years and years ago, probably over 10 years ago now, I actually acquired this and I never watched it. This ancient VHS from CBS Fox Video of Return to Boggy Creek. So I'm basically coming at you to review Return to Boggy Creek, which I guess is kind of a loose sequel to The Legend of Boggy Creek. However, it doesn't involve Charles B. Pierce at all, from what I understand. Someone else completely took over the reins, producerially, directorially, writerly, everythingly. Basically, it's really weird that, you know, Charles B. Pierce has nothing to do with this, but he would return to, I guess in the 80s, come back to, produce and direct, and I think also star in Boggy Creek 2. The Legend Continues, I want to say, is what it's called, and that is on Tubi and YouTube and stuff, so I'll watch that on Tubi or YouTube or something and stop by to review that later on in the coming days and weeks as well. But having first seen, or having just recently watched this VHS of the Return to Boggy Creek, I gotta say, it's funny because, you know, while I like the original, like The Legend of Boggy Creek, more or less just for its, I don't know, it's got this quaintness, and the narration and the narrator's voice is cool, and the hokey songs and the music and stuff. Like, even though I may not have given it a huge star rating, there's something about the original The Legend of Boggy Creek that has this quaintness to it, and, you know, I can understand why it wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. But I gotta tell you, having watched this one, which is rated PG, and I gotta say, I guess I see the original one, or yeah, I might as well just call it the original one, with you know, through a different lens, and kind of maybe respect it and make enjoy it even more, because this thing is kind of like I mean, you know, I guess it's not up my alley really, because it's more or less a kids movie. I can't remember if the first one was rated G or PG. It might have been G, I'm not sure, but PG, it wouldn't be any higher than PG. This one's PG. Came out in 77 or 78. There's conflicting info on the exact year. Starring Don Wells, quote unquote starring Don Wells, who's barely in it as these kids' parents. I don't exactly know if she's parents to all these kids, or just one of the kids, or two of the kids, or what. But basically this is more or less like a kids movie, which is a little disappointing, but for those of you who've got kids or like kids movies, that might be more up your alley. Basically revolves around this young adolescent girl and these two younger boys who just travel the bottoms and on their boats and doing fishing, and, you know, winning fishing contests and all this and that, which is fun. And, you know, one thing, just like with the first film, that I will say about this movie that it's great is the scenery. It's like the exact same thing as the first movie, in that majority of it takes place outdoors on the bottoms, on the water, and these kids paddling, doing this and that through the bottoms and the streams, and doing this and that in the woods, and, you know, all that kind of stuff, which makes it cool. The good old days when kids actually were outside during the nice weather, actually doing things physically. Imagine that. So Dawn Wells, of course, she's one of the hot chicks. Marianne, I think, from the Gilligan's Island TV show. That's probably what she's most well known for. She's like the star in this movie, and as I said, she's barely in it, playing at least one of the kids' parents. And basically, I guess her husband had been, disappeared into the bottoms, went into the bottoms to do something years ago and disappeared and never came back, and that's their little bit of a backstory and stuff. And there's these two comic relief guys, one's the grandpa and the other's uncle, whatever the hell his name is, and they kind of bicker and argue. And early on I was just like, 15 minutes in, I'm like, okay, this is just playing like some kids movie, Captain Kangaroo, or, frickin' Mr. Rogers without Mr. Rogers. 25 minutes in, I'm like, uh-oh, this is probably basically a kids movie with very, very little Boggy Creek monster to show for it. Basically, the premise of this movie is sometime in the first 30 minutes of this movie, some family, dad and family are outdoors by Boggy Creek, and the way they know that is because there's a convenient sign there saying Boggy Creek. So of course they know they're by Boggy Creek, and they see this monster who they, or this creature which they originally think is a bear, but having talked to some of the locals, they realize, no, it can't be a bear. There's no bears in Boggy Creek, so it must be the Boggy Creek monster, whom the locals have started calling for some reason Big Bay Thai or something like that. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but that's the name they have basically slapped on to the monster of Boggy Creek's. It's the name they've given him without the monster's permission. I guess the story is, possibly, if I'm understanding correctly, that for years the monster was gone, and we can call him the creature. The creature was gone, and now the creature's back. Big Bay Thai disappeared, and then Big Bay Thai returned. But the premise of this movie is this guy, this dad, who's with the family, who got a glimpse of this Big Bay Thai, thinking it was a bear, finding out it couldn't be a bear. It must be Big Bay Thai. He's a photographer. He decides, I think if I'm following correctly what this movie's about, having only seen it once and not being the best at getting all the details on the first viewing, I think he wants to take a picture, wants to photograph this thing. So I think the basic premise of this movie, most of it's just childish, kid stuff, just, supposed to be comic relief with these two, grandpa whoever and uncle whoever who are bickering, but mostly the movie takes place just following this young girl and these two younger boys doing their fishing stuff and this and that, and putting this other stuff that's supposed to do whatever and who knows what, and they call it something, I forgot the name of their concoction that one of the grandpa or uncle whoever makes or whatever, placing it around the bottoms and the forest to lure, I guess, prey and animals and whatever, to trap them or whatever. But the majority of the movie is just seeing what these kids are up to, which isn't a whole hell of a lot. And also, like, I guess once you reach like the middle point, it becomes about this guy finding this photographer finding this local to take him out onto the bottoms right conveniently during this hurricane or storm thing. And then I can't remember why the kids want to go follow them. Maybe it's to see the monster for themselves, but the kids get wind that this photographer guy wants to, got a local to take him out looking for Big Bay Thai or whatever, and they want to follow him, the girl with the two younger boys, so they all end up getting caught in the storm, and that's basically what the movie's about. Something interesting to note, if you're a Screams of a Winter Night fan like I am, the film from right around the same time, I think 1978 or 79, it might have been actually after he did this. It turns out, from what I can see, I'm not 100% sure, but it looks very much like, it probably is, the guy who played Harper and some other roles also. I think he played 3 roles in Screams of a Winter Night, but the main role was Harper. He is one of the, I don't know, like if it's some guy, I don't know if it's the guy, the boyfriend of the Don Wells character or what, but that guy, Harper from Screams of a Winter Night, looks very much like him, probably is him, is also featured in this movie, which he probably did maybe a year or two before Screams of a Winter Night. I was seeing more and more of that guy in this movie, and I'm like, oh, who the hell is that? Who the hell is that? And I could place the face, and and then I was like, oh, it's Harper from Screams of a Winter Night. So lucky us. He's that movie. I figured that was kind of those people just probably in that movie, and that's it. So it was interesting seeing Harper from Screams of a Winter Night in another movie alongside Don Wells, to no less. So I'm not very familiar with Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, but I am familiar with enough of it to think that it's kind of like this mystery whodunit, these kids getting into all this trouble finding things out or doing things on their own and stuff. And that's what basically this movie is. And what's funny is that the girl character in this movie, who is the eldest among the 2 younger boys, the whole movie basically revolves around what they're getting up to the whole time. She even name drops Nancy Drew, I want to say, in the Hardy Boys as well, as something that she'd like to, if she could be, she wants to be like a frickin' whatever when she grows up, a detective or who knows what the hell. She idolizes Nancy Drew, so her doing things outdoors, being by themselves, is just her and the 2 younger boys and stuff, is kind of like this Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys situation. Who the hell knows? Maybe the people that made this movie would have rather have just actually done that, but couldn't secure the rights, so they the rights were floating around for Boggy Creek, so like, well, here, we'll do our Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys movie and capitalize off the Boggy Creek name at the same time, and it'll be win-win. But that's what basically this movie is Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys around Boggy Creek. So, as I said, the probably midway point through this 80-minute or so movie. This movie runs 87 minutes. You gotta account for beginning and opening credits. What's funny about this movie is it has this like synth score, and I think it plays during the beginning and maybe a little bit towards the end climax. There's barely any of the synth music in it, kind of just a guy just pressing down on synth keyboard keys. But it does have some, it very much like with the original Boggy Creek or the Legend of Boggy Creek, it has like maybe two, probably at least possibly three like songs, while the kids are paddling and stuff. So like I say, if you definitely have your fill, or maybe more of your fill of kids paddling watercraft through the bottoms, along with whatever songs they can produce along with. There's a lot of shots and stuff in this movie that look like, the more I was watching it, I was like, God, was this filmed in 3D? Because there's a lot of stuff in the movie that would indicate that it's possibly filmed in 3D. Looking this movie up online, I don't think it was filmed in 3D, but the way it was presented full screen on this VHS tape, it would indicate that this was just like the first film, one of these wide Panavision-ish kind of films, because there were all these scenes where it was like panning. I don't think it could be 185 and have this much panning, but there was definitely some noticeable panning on this VHS full frame video cassette. It would be cool to see, very much like with the 2018 new HD scan of the original film, a newer widescreen scan of this film, although it would be pretty much arduous to sit through it again, unfortunately. But it would be cool to see a widescreen version of this, although who the hell would want to sit through it again. But that's the basic premise of this movie. The kids follow these other two guys out under the bottoms during a hurricane, and Don Wells and Harper from Screams of a Winter Night comfort themselves in the convenient shelter of the local diner or whatever, along with everyone else of the locals that have a brain not to go out under the bottoms when a hurricane's coming. And the monster, the kids end up coming across this boat, which I guess was the boat of their, that one girl's late father who went out there and never came back. They discover his boat and then realize that that's where the monster lives. And during all this, hurricane stormage, which is basically, hurricane chaos superimposed in front of the screen on just a sunny day, when they just shot the footage on a sunny day. And they did have some wind machines, so I'll give them that, but it superimposed the hurricane, across in post-production across the screen. Monster ends up saving the day. I think it saves the photographer and the local guy who brought the photographer out to shoot the creature, and then it saves the kids, and the kids end up taking credit for saving the two guys, the local and the photographer guy. And so there's like, basically, unlike the original film, the monster or the creature in this film just isn't there very much at all. Just like a glimpse early in the film, and then like maybe just a little bit here and there, towards the middle, towards the end, helping the kids out, saving the day, and that's pretty much it. So actually, yeah, I mean, if you're the kind of person who found the original hard to get through, I challenge you to watch all of this, because I found this one to be quite difficult to get through. Perhaps I would have enjoyed it more as a kid, but probably not. I mean, I was watching things like 2001: A Space Odyssey when I was 10, 11, and 12, and absolutely eating it up, when most adults would, find that movie a complete and utter bore. So I can't say at any age of my life I really would have liked this very much at all. My star rating would be probably 1 star out of 4 stars for Return to Boggy Creek, a kind of a unofficial, I guess, sequel. I mean, I guess sequels can be made by an entirely different group of people. I mean, I guess I don't know if it's an official sequel or just an unofficial sequel. We'll just call it an unofficial Boggy Creek sequel. I hear that Charles B. Pierce's Boggy Creek 2, The Legend Continues, isn't that great either, but I did see a little bit of it. I don't know why I just scanned to, like, I don't know, the middle or something like that on Tubi or YouTube and there's some sexy chick with ass cheeks or whatever. So, you know, that'll at least be fun to watch, the sexy cheeks in the chick with the sexy cheeks with the hot chick. Sexy chick with the hot cheeks showing or whatever. But hopefully that wasn't just that one scene and no other part of Boggy Creek 2. So from what I can tell of my brief looking at Boggy Creek 2, there's at least maybe a hot chick or two in it with shorts, so that'll be fun. But, you know, expect at some point when I can drag myself to watch Boggy Creek 2, The Legend Continues, a review, or me stopping by to review that. But yeah, pretty much a stinker unless you're a frickin' kid who likes, you know, Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, or even an adult who likes Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys themed movies and that take place out in Boggy Creek in the Bottoms. You might enjoy this unofficial sequel to The Legend of Boggy Creek. I, however, happen to be not one of those individuals, so I didn't really find this movie enjoyable much at all, except for, you know, just seeing Harper in another movie was interesting, and also just that there was very beautiful bottoms slash whatever the hell it's called, just water paddling and kids paddling on the water photography, and a couple of 2 or 3 goofy songs and whatever, but not enough to warrant any higher, unfortunately, than 1 star for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Thanks a lot for watching, and as always, we'll catch you on the next video.